Welcome back to the channel. This is your boy Rich Latta here, back with another video. We're going to be reacting to a video called The Harsh Truth about Caitlin Clark. I saw it going around Twitter and all that. Big shout out to Jmxy Highroller. Just going to weigh in and give my thoughts.
Some athletes are good. Some athletes are great. But very rarely does an athlete make such an impact that they begin to transcend their sport. You know, those
Jordan,
times where
Messi,
an athlete is creating so much buzz that people who don't even follow the sport know their name.
Phelps.
These athletes hardly ever come around. But when they do, you know something special is going on. Growing up, I used to skate, so of course I know who Tony Hawk is. But my mom also knows who Tony Hawk is. In a sport that tends to only retain the most die-hard fans, Usain Bolt was so incredible that he became a household name. Man.
Yeah, like everybody, you know, used to do this and all that, so.
And it also helped that his name sounds like he was destined to be the fastest man of all time. Ask the average person to name any golfer, and they'll instantly say Tiger Woods, followed by no one else. There are very few athletes that reach this level of popularity, where they almost single-handedly lift their sport to new heights. And right now, women's basketball is home to an athlete that may just be next in line to be one of these transcendent athletes. Caitlin Clark has only been in the WNBA for one season, and she is already the face of the league, drawing...
I don't know who needs to hear this, but he's absolutely 100% correct, and it's her. Deal with it.
In more fans, viewers, money than ever before. But it hasn't come without harsh criticism, some of it targeted at the disproportionate admiration and attention being given to just one player. And
so I've seen people go out of their way all this year to say it's not her. Why, you know, the attention has come to the game and all this stuff, but like, I feel like it's very easy to figure out, especially now that the season is over. I was a person that was in the beginning of the year saying that a lot of this, you know, increase of popularity and interest is due to Caitlin Clark. We've got hard numbers behind this. We can compare, you know, the ratings. We can compare building attendance. We can look at merch sales. And I think that it's so clear at this point, especially with, you know, how the season finished and, you know, how excellent she was. The future that people thought was a couple years away, it actually showed up earlier than they thought.
Some of this criticism claiming she simply isn't nearly as dominant as we are led to believe. A product of the sports media machine pushing their golden child.
I gotta say, if you can find mainstream sports media that's really pushing Caitlin Clark hard, I'd love to see it. It's definitely not ESPN, and it's definitely not FS1. Anything outside of that, you're talking about people not above board. Let's just say that.
Is Caitlin Clark really as good as advertised? Or have her talents been overblown for the sake of the WNBA and the future of women's basketball?
Let's say that they were making it up, right? Let's say that we didn't have access to statistics. We didn't have access to attendance figures. We didn't have access to, you know, the merchandise numbers. We didn't just log on our timelines and see the nonstop talk. Let's say it was all made up and it was 100% hype. If it was hype, isn't this what the game still needed anyway? Just saying.
And I want to personally thank Caitlin Clark for lifting up our sport.
On April 7th of this year, the women of the NCAA Basketball Championship accomplished something completely unprecedented. Throughout the game, they drew in nearly 19 million viewers, a number that shattered every NCAA women's record, exceeded the viewership of any men's tournament game over the last half decade, and even...
That's crazy when you think about it, and it's just like, I think there are a lot of factors that have to do with that. It has to do with, obviously, someone like Caitlin Clark, you know, Dawn Staley in the South Carolina group that, you know, she's built, and, you know, UConn's always strong. Also the rise of, you know, like Juju Watkins. And then the fact that they are keeping their stars for a longer amount of time, teams are growing together. It's almost how exciting men's college basketball was in the 80s and 90s before, you know, they started going to like 1 year and stuff like that. So, you know, it was due for, you know, things to flip.
Even surpassed every single NBA Finals game since 2018. The game was a groundbreaking spectacle, with people who had never even tuned into a single basketball game in their life turning on the TVs to see who would be crowned champions. The majority of this flocking attributed to one player, Caitlin Clark. Her unbelievable range and record-breaking performances proving to be must-watch TV. The true testament of her greatness and impact, all of the doubt and borderline detest.
Yeah, Sheryl Swoopes has been, I don't know how to exactly describe what Sheryl Swoopes' issue with her was. You know, the tournament record that she broke, she did come out and, you know, kind of walk back some of the initial criticism, but then it just kept popping up to the point where it peaked with Swoopes getting removed from broadcast, you know, with the Dallas Wings. And it would be so easy to wrap your arms around a transcendent figure, but I guess she's found another way. Maybe you got to be on the opposite side of that transcendent figure, because there is a audience that is not as big that will rally around you.
That quickly followed her ascent. Some fans and players, both past and present, questioning if her talents would translate to the next level and if the horde of fans she inspired would follow. They did. Her WNBA debut attracted the most viewers of any WNBA game in the history of ESPN.
Just think about what that means. All those times where we saw games on ESPN 1, ESPN 2, all the great stars there have been, you know, great basketball players like Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, Candace Parker, Simone Augustus, Sylvia Fowles, the list goes on. This is what the people came for, and the people made the decision. So it's hard. I just don't understand when decisions are so clearly made. It's like the sky is blue. It's not red. Like
Indiana's home game attendance jumped from an average of 4,000 fans last season to an average of over 17,000 fans this season.
That is insane. 4,000 to 17,000 average. So just add all that up, right? They play about 20 home games a year, right? And you've got 4,000. So it's about 80,000. Like, you add it up. My math's like, you know, a little out there, forgive me. But you take that same 17,000, like, that is such a large gap. That can only be described as a once-in-a-lifetime person that can pop the attendance to the rate of literally 4 times the, you know, the amount.
A more than 400% increase in just a single year.
There you go.
Transactions in the Fever's team store jumped over 700%. And
so it's not like they're just coming to the games, but like people are spending bread too. So this is the perfect storm.
WNBA viewership has skyrocketed to levels that even...
I want to stop the video. In that last scene, they were showing the Fever against the Minnesota Lynx. Before a game was played, the coach of that team, Cheryl Reeves, was hashtagging the W as more than one player and all this other stuff. It was just this deeply insecure mindset around this, rather than just like, all right, just lay in the cut, lay in wait, and then do it in the games. But they're so hurt seemingly by Caitlin Clark. I don't know what it is, man.
Advocates could not foresee. Game 4 of last year's WNBA Finals drew in more viewers than any WNBA game over the last 2 decades, with
shout out to them.
728,000 fans tuning in for the game, living up to the hype as one of the most anticipated games in the history of the league. This season, there were 22 regular season games that eclipsed that mark, 21 of them drawing in over 1 million viewers. Even crazier, 18 of those 22 games featured Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever.
What's more to be said? Thanks, Jimmy. Look at this graph. Do you see all the little heads with Caitlin Clark above them? These are the games and the percentages after they had what looked to be like a new peak in the league of the finals last year. That has been shattered over and over and over and over and over again. Again, I don't know who needs to hear it. I don't know why it hurts them, but they gotta find a way to deal with it.
But the most revealing evidence of the now dubbed Caitlin Clark effect is the fact that WNBA viewership has nearly caught up with NBA viewership in 2024. On ESPN, NBA games averaged 1.56 million viewers this past season. WNBA games averaged 1.2 million viewers.
You hear that, men? They're on you.
A number that was inconceivable just a couple years ago. But Caitlin Clark's soaring popularity has been a point of contention for many fans of the WNBA, frustrated that in a league that is bursting with talent right now, it's all just being overlooked for the poster child of women's basketball. Do Caitlin's abilities actually warrant the hype?
So, glad Jimmy makes that point. This became the WNBA's thing. She already had the motion in college. It was headed this way. We already knew the record ratings then. We saw the NIL deals. Like, we saw the big football stadium game. She was already a star. It's like, this isn't like someone that just kind of got to the league on accident or was a second round player and then they grew as a star in the league with the platform. No, she brought her own platform and combined it with the league. So
her rookie season, Caitlin broke over a dozen league and franchise records, including the WNBA's single season assist record.
This graphic is filthy. There's all these, things are, her records and all that. So they're going to show you the full graphic, I imagine.
She set the record for the most assists in a single game. She received the most all-star votes of any player in WNBA history, set a new league record for double-doubles by a guard in a single season, scored the most points of any rookie in league history, and became the first rookie in WNBA history to put up a triple-double. Just this past week, it was announced that Caitlin made first-team All-WNBA, which
that's crazy.
Makes her the first rookie to make first-team All-League since Candace Parker did it.
Woo! All right. This is a good one. So, first rookie since 2008, which was Candace Parker, who won the MVP award that year. People have called Caitlin the best rookie ever and been met with, yeah, but what about Candace Parker? She won the MVP and, she was great, in 2008. And, they have put the stats side by side and everything like that. And they're very similar to keep it a buck. But what they don't mention is 25% of that vote in 2008 came from fan voting. Now, I don't know what you want to do. You can do it either way. You can take the fan voting away from Candace Parker in 2008, or you can add it in 2024. What do you guys think would have happened? We'll get back to the video.
16 years ago. Turns out those awe-inspiring performances from her days in college did in fact translate to the pros. Because even against the best defense in the world, she is pretty much an offensive cheat code. Throughout her rookie season, with points and assists, Clark generated 45.2% of all points produced by the Indiana Fever.
$45.2? That means if a bucket is scored, Caitlin Clark has something to do with it, whether she's putting it in herself or she was setting up, whoever with the assist. This is an offensive machine that is in the very top 1% of basketball players to ever live.
For perspective, she has a larger offensive load than every single player in the NBA last season.
There you have it, right there. All right, let's take a look at this chart. Points generated per game. Caitlin Clark, Arike Ngumbawale, Sabrina Ionescu. Those are the top three. She's the only person above 40% of the offense. Arike is not the playmaker Caitlin is. And Ionescu has other great players with her. So, understandably, her numbers will be a little bit knocked down a little. Caitlin is actually more comparable to the likes of Luka, Trey. Yeah, Luka and Trey. And between those, Trey Young, some people get on his numbers, but let's just take a look at the numbers here. 45% of the total offense, 43% of the total offense, and the only person above is Luka Doncic, and he's scoring and assisting at levels even LeBron wasn't. So you can throw Caitlin Clark in that category. Let's take her from this list and stick her on the other side.
Outside of Luka Doncic. And she's a rookie. But to really understand Caitlin's unparalleled offensive prowess, here are the 200 most productive offensive seasons in WNBA history on a scale of points generated per game. And among these seasons, you'll find the greatest players in the league's history. Lisa Leslie, Tamika.
All right, let's see. We got Lisa Leslie, Elena Del Don, Angel McCoughtry, Candace Parker, just 26.6. Tamika Catchings, Indiana Fever, 27.7. Cheryl Swoops, 28.5. Jewel Lloyd, 28.
Catchings, Cheryl Swoops, Candace Parker, and Angel McCoughtry have tons of seasons littered throughout this chart. Climb towards the top and you'll find seasons from A'ja Wilson and Cynthia Cooper.
So A'ja Wilson, that's her year this year, which is she was the unanimous MVP.
With 4 of the top 10 most productive offensive.
And then Sabrina's right there as well, but that's because Asia's not a playmaker like that. This has more to do with her scoring, it looks like. Cynthia Cooper, all-time legend.
Seasons in WNBA history is Diana Taurasi, her 2006 campaign being the best of them all.
So she also, I believe, was the MVP in 2006, 33.9 points generated, per game. So let's keep it going.
Producing 33.9 points per game. And then there's Caitlin Clark, who is...
What the fuck, bro? What am I looking at? This is crazy. Shout out to Jmxy Highroller putting this together. This is insane. Hold on. Listen to how you set this up. Let's run this back a little bit.
2006 campaign being the best of them all, producing 33.9 points per game. And then there's Caitlin Clark, who is already the most potent offensive player in the history of the WNBA in her rookie season. Women's hoops has never seen a player like this.
So some people, they can't understand words. They can't understand numbers. Maybe you can understand a star chart. Maybe. they're not words or numbers really. We can just show you, hey, the highest number is this one. I think we can count, can't we? And it's all the way up here. This person in their first year, while all these other all-time players share real estate down there. Now, if I was to ask, how good do you think this player is? We got this much space right here between Caitlin Clark and the next best person, who was an MVP that year, one of the best years of said player's career, said player who they call the GOAT. What are we doing? What are we talking about? Remember those Rookie of the Year discussions earlier this year? Don't that sound like some dumb shit?
And as absurd as her numbers are, how she puts up these numbers is just as incredible. Here are the players who attempt the longest three-pointers on average in the NBA last season, with Trey Young leading the league with the deepest three-point attempts with an average distance of 27.94 feet, and Damian Lillard and Stephen Curry just a shade closer. Despite it still being worth the same amount of points, the longest shooters in the NBA are stepping 4 feet outside the three-point line on their attempts.
I'm glad he brought that up. He talked about the longer shooting. So it's like, why would you shoot further if you can just shoot closer to the three-point line? So the value in that is you're stretching those defenses to their breaking point. They have to be responsible, for more area. And when you have to do that, you just swing the ball. So that makes you even more dangerous as an offensive option.
But even amongst the deepest shooters in the world, Caitlin Clark is on her own island, because throughout the 2024 regular season, her average three-point distance was 28.1 feet, which is not only further than any player in the NBA and in the WNBA, it is a whopping 6 feet out from the WNBA three-point line. Has Caitlin Clark been worth all the attention and hype that has engulfed her over the last 2 years?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say so. She didn't just have a successful rookie season. She had one of the best rookie seasons in recent basketball history. And this isn't just to her benefit, but the benefit of the entire WNBA. Because the seismic boost in the WNBA's popularity this season is not limited to those turning on the games to see what she'll do next. It can also be found in the fans actually showing up to the games.
So there's another theory with this, like the TV show Orange is the New Black. So it was built around Piper. She was the main character. But after a while, Piper kind of became just somebody on the show and like somebody amongst all the other stories. They use Piper essentially, to funnel the other characters in. And the same concept, can happen here. I think, Caitlin will obviously remain more important than Piper did throughout, the series of, Orange is the New Black. But in this case, it's like you follow Caitlin in and you get introduced to, a lot of other players. And, it would seem to be a basic concept, but for many it's not.
Looking at a chart of the average attendance of WNBA games since the inception of the league in 1997 will tell you a story of a league that has seen their fair share of good days and bad ones. In 1997, there were only 8 WNBA teams, all with really healthy attendance numbers due to the excitement of a new women's league.
Also, they had a deal on NBC at that time, Lifetime. They had network and cable penetration that were on much higher levels. Also with much like people that the way cable worked in the 90s is not the way it works right now. So there were less channels, less choice, and those NBC numbers used to be monstrous back then.
The league quickly expanded to 16 teams, with a handful of teams emerging as fan favorites, like the Washington Mystics, the Phoenix Mercury, and the LA Sparks. But with a massive league expansion came a nearly equal retraction. Many teams folding along the way, such as the Soul, Fire, Miracle, and Sting. But it wasn't until COVID where the league's once steady fan base was wiped out. In 2020, there were no fans in attendance due to COVID protocols, and when play resumed in 2021, attendance was at an all-time low, a number that has been quickly rising in the few years since the pandemic, but has specifically seen an explosion this season,
So this thing has come back from like death's doorstep, essentially. Like
attendance was higher, explosion this season, where for the first time, league attendance was higher than the WNBA's inaugural season. The Indiana Fever seeing the highest attendance numbers in league history, nearly selling out every single home game. In a league where attracting the casual fan has been a seemingly insurmountable task, Caitlin Clark has defied the odds by not only drawing in new fans for her and her team, but rising the tides for the entire league.
17,000 average home attendance, the highest ever. Before, we're talking about the Mystics, 2002, 2003. Maybe that's Shamika Holslaw. Maybe? Not sure.
This is completely unprecedented. At least in the WNBA it is. But there was a time when the NBA was facing similar struggles until a pair of players showed up and changed everything. After the success of the Celtics in the 1960s, the NBA's growth in popularity
Feel like the parallels are going to get real spooky in a second.
had come to a grinding halt in the 70s. The league had a rampant drug problem. An emerging rival league known as the ABA was picking up steam, and the NBA didn't really have a face to propel the league into the next decade. Jerry West was on his way out. Kareem was incredible, but he didn't really have the personality or charm that fans gravitate towards. Bill Walton's prime was cut short due to injuries, and many fans felt Julius Erving's introduction to the league after leaving the ABA in 1976 was a bit short of what was advertised. Many games were lucky to see even half capacity in attendance. Many teams were losing money. The NBA had fallen to a, quote, second-tier sport behind the NFL, MLB, and NHL. All of this culminating to the point where some networks infamously had NBA Finals games on tape delay in the late 70s due to low ratings. The league was in desperate need of a generational, transcendent superstar. Lucky for them, they got two. Coming off the most popular rivalry in the history of college basketball, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson propelled the league to new heights in the 80s.
Hey man, I'm not gonna say who's who, because I think it's just lazy to assign them kind of by race, essentially, between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Look, and I would be reluctant to do that because let's say I did, obviously you would put the person from Indiana in the Midwest, that would be Caitlin Clark. But I'm sorry, Angel Reese does not play like Magic Johnson. I don't see it on the court. Maybe off the court as far as the interest. Maybe we'll go there with it.
Transforming the NBA from a second-rate league into a behemoth of sports and entertainment. A tandem that many longtime NBA fans say saved the NBA. Now, this isn't to say Caitlin is the second coming of two of the greatest, most important figures in the history of basketball, but her impact on the sport at such an early stage in her career has reached a level reminiscent of some of the most influential athletes of all time relative to their sport. Because her popularity hasn't just affected her, it has had a cascading effect on players across the entire WNBA. Clark has essentially become the gateway to NBA fandom for many people. They come to witness the phenomenon that she is and end up staying once they see just how awesome the league and its players are.
Great minds think alike, Jimmy.
Players around the league are signing groundbreaking endorsement deals. Teams now have their own planes and new facilities. Many WNBA players have become household names, some of the most recognizable figures in sports today. There is real, genuine discourse about the games and the players right now that exists beyond the diehard fans. Conversations about the WNBA are now no longer about the legitimacy of the league itself, but instead about its players, records being broken, rivalries, the playoffs, title hopes, the draft, and up-and-coming prospects. It's understandable that Caitlin's explosion in popularity has caused a lot of tension. Why?
I'm sure he has a great reason of why he's about to explain. But for me, I would think it would be imperative and just a smart business decision to embrace this player and just kind of stop with the foolishness, because we all know like everything that just gets surrounded with her, with the conversations that go beyond basketball that just get so exhausting, for lack of a better word, because these are worthwhile conversations, I think, in a nutshell, right? But when you hit people over the head so much with it and decide now is the time to litigate everything, and it kind of becomes, it's like, damn, it's just exhausting, for people who are really coming, they're coming to spend the money. It's like it's all right. This is going to be an out there description. So imagine we were in a strip club. So the patrons are walking in with the money out. Essentially, they're ready to throw it, right? But before the patrons can do that, they're like, hold on, before you do that, we need to talk about we need to have you think about exactly what you're doing here tonight. We need you to learn why you're here. We need to, it's like, I'm not trying to think about all that. I'm just trying to throw some money right now. Like that's kind of what it is. It's like this education that has to take place of people that don't understand the league. It's like, it doesn't matter if they don't understand it. They're here now. Isn't it what you wanted? But, you know, I guess maybe it's not. Maybe it didn't come on their terms. So it is an adjustment. It's difficult.
Why is she getting all the attention when there's tons of great players around the league doing great things? The answer to that question? Well, it depends on who you ask. But there's no denying the widespread impact Clark has made on the league in just a single season. For years, players in the WNBA pushed for people to give their talents and their skills and the product a chance. And in record numbers, people finally are. Now, what it took to get them to tune in may not be the most ideal circumstance, where for many casual fans, one player is overshadowing the vast majority of an entire league, but it's 1,000 steps in the right direction. Whether the Caitlin Clark effect will have a lasting impact on the league and retain these new viewers and fans and continue to draw in more in the future is something that only time will tell. But one season in, and she is on a path to being one of the very few truly game-changing athletes of her generation. And yes, she's got all the talent to back it up.
So shout out to Jmxy Highroller for that video. Very informative, very level-headed. Kind of how I like to do the things I talk about on my channel. But I think that this can sustain, and we're talking about someone who got better and better in college. They came in, as a whirlwind. Maintaining that interest, is going to be, difficult. Because, it's 8 months till she plays again, essentially. And, I think people will be ready for her when it comes. But it's going to be we got chapter 1 done. And I think she was so good. Now the pressure is going to immediately jump to her. All right, let's win the title now. And I think there are things that, this team has to go through together still, and to take those steps towards a championship. But she's so good, people are going to want it right now, and I think ultimately is going to benefit her because she's a competitor and she's going to be driven, and we saw what happens when they wake up a monster. So anyway, great video, the harsh truth about Caitlin Clark. That was my reaction to it. What do you think of this video? Peace.